I'm back.
Do you want to briefly discuss what jail you were in? Because we were back and then we were immediately gone again. You had a lot of things going for you, being as good of a situation it could be, and it's still monumentally, never-endingly tsunami wave of stuff every single day.
There's like a years-long list of stuff. And on top of that, you're run down and destroyed from the process that led to all of that.
There was a war of dollars. $900 for a wooden bowl?
A bowl that sucks.
Bowl that sucks. A dirty old garbage bowl.
A dirty old bowl.
Hey, welcome to the Create Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. I am Kevin Lieber, and wait for it, with me as always is Matthew Tabor.
As always, every single episode of this podcast, as always. But it's a Good Friday. It actually is Good Friday. It's Great Friday. If you're, since it's Easter weekend, if you're a Christian type, you're celebrating He having risen. If you're not, you can celebrate me having risen. I'm back. I've risen from the podcast dead. Reascended.
You have. Yeah, the last several podcasts just don't count at this point. We'll just ignore that they ever even happened and welcome you back. And do you want to briefly discuss, what sort of jail you were in, some sort of deep pit that you needed to escape from? I don't know. I don't really know. Where have you been?
Help me first. When is the last time you and I did a podcast together? Do you remember?
Well, I think that we did a We Are Back podcast
How'd that work?
In December, and that did not go well at all because we were back and then we were immediately gone again. Immediately.
Fully intended to be back. That's right. It was before I went to Moldova, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then we were really not back.
Yeah. Welcome back immediately goes off the air. And you did a good job, though. I mean, it was good. The episodes were good. It was a nice run. Solo Lieber was good.
Are you telling me you actually listened to some of those?
God, no. Did you enjoy doing it, though?
Yeah, it was difficult. It was difficult. It was much harder for a couple of reasons. One is that just solo talking for right about the 40-minute mark, my throat and voice starts to get really strained and tired. So that part of it, like physically, it was hard. But in terms of content, one of the things that I noticed really quickly is that I can remember the gist of almost everything, and I can remember the details of almost nothing. So one of the great things about talking to you on this podcast is that I am fully capable of summarizing the gist of a concept, and then you are usually excellent at diving into the details of it. And having to do that on my own was a challenge that, I couldn't really handle.
It really is like sports where you have the play-by-play and the color guys. And when the same person has to do both, like you can't keep track of it. You just say things. And then after you've said it, you kind of sort out what has just come out of your mouth. That's what it's like when I have to do a solo thing. But it seemed very smooth to me. Well, I listened to some, not all, couldn't listen to all. But it was fluid. You did good.
Thank you. One of the things that I couldn't remember was the actual thing that the Luddites were smashing and complaining about. I was like, sewing machines, something to do with textiles. Do you remember what it was? It looms? Do you remember the actual thing that the Luddites were upset over?
Oh, yeah. No. It was, it was looms.
Okay.
or weaving things. Yeah. Let me see specifically here, but I know it was like the textile union type. Let's see, stocking frames, mechanical knitting machine. It was a stocking frame. So, yeah, I mean, look, he started a riot over sewing machines, what it comes down to.
And we're still talking about it. Whatever,
it's near and dear to my heart.
Years later.
When this podcast ends, I go to pick up a Singer Featherweight 221.
Of course.
It's all sewing all the time.
Yeah.
It's all sewing all the time. And aficionados of the needle and thread understand what a big thing this is to grab another one. I have one. This one is a very light restoration project. I really think it's just going to be a cleanup. And if not, well, then I find out then.
Wait, so we need
it's all sewing all the time.
We need to find out now what you've been doing. I mean, I don't know how we could do
Turmoil.
The next 2 years worth of podcasts just about the last 4 months for you. But what is the Cliff Notes version? Right.
So I'm trying to figure out where to start. And I do think that we did that episode because then I was going to Moldova and we were going to record when I got back. The fall was very busy with between you and I and Ben and James, editor, and me and all this stuff. It was Argentina, Jesus Christ, Austria, Armenia, Albania, Argentina, Moldova. And the idea was I get back, I spend time with my family, I relax and get into the good groove on work. I'm very excited for this for the winter. My mom fell very seriously ill at Christmas. And that is what derailed me, because that got, more involved and more difficult, progressively. And, eventually, in March, she passed. And so because, that, it's, look, it's devastating and horrible when one parent passes, but nothing changes substantially there because, all the operations of a house and like who's paying the bills and all that stuff doesn't change. The spouse just continues to do things, and you change the name on some bills and this and that, change some accounts. But it's not ultimately a rug pull, right? It's manageable. But when the second one goes, then you have to figure out everything from scratch, and sometimes worse than scratch. It's as simple as, and this is a process I didn't know, Kevin, you have somebody's car. If a car owner dies, it has to be registered into, like, the owner of that car is now the estate. And so you have to go to the DMV. And when I say you, like, it was me, it wasn't. My brother is handling this part, which is great. But then that has to have, like, the title transferred to the estate, and then the estate can process it. And if it's, whatever somebody's will stipulates, kids, then it gets, divided up in value. But if it's a car, you can't cut that into thirds. And so it's like, does somebody want to use this? In which case they buy out the other shareholders of the car. Do you sell it and then do that? So that's one item in an estate that is just strangely complex. Like, Kevin, you've been thinking about car stuff lately, and it's super complex to just go and buy a car normally, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, now I'm thinking about, having to change I have to change my car insurance. I have to change the throughway pass and what that's registered to. And everything becomes a bit of a bureaucratic nightmare just for yourself without any of the complications of other people's interests being involved in any of that.
Right. And in the meantime, that goes to a person legally who doesn't exist, which is the mythical estate. It's sort of like corporate personhood in that way, where the estate exists just as a person does, but there's no person to do it. So you're doing things on behalf of a fictional entity. Yeah, it's really strange. So it's, you can imagine that there's like a years long list of stuff. And on top of that, you're run down and destroyed from the process that led to all of that. So I'm talking like I'm obsessing now over like nuts and bolts logistics and not going into the obvious like personal tragedy side of things. But yeah, I don't recommend it. And I've said this to some, I know I said it to you, Kevin, like it's probably too late for all of you, but I can't recommend having parents at all. It's brutal. It is horrible.
Well, one thing that you did have in your favor is that there were some like end of life things that were sorted out ahead of time that help a lot. And this is like a really weird subject to try to broach with your parents. Be like, hey, mom and dad, can you like sort of figure out, do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be buried? Where do you want to be buried? Do you have a plot? Yeah. Do you have a headstone? What's on that? Like that's its own just insane thing to figure out that actually can be determined ahead of time. And, they can be involved in that. But if it's not, now all of a sudden, that's a huge mystery box that you need to fill.
It is. Yeah. And I'm kind of weirdly comfortable talking about all of the stuff because I spent so much time with my mom and talking to my mom in the last few months and before that too. I mean, because I live, like 3/4 of a mile away. So it's not like it was difficult to talk to my mom whenever. But all the important stuff, I mean, when you're in a hospital, there's not much to do, right? And it was far away. The hospital was, 3-4 hours. So I was staying there and it's not like I was going home to sleep at night. I was staying, in Rochester. But yeah, I mean, you go in the morning and, you're sitting in a hospital room with somebody and stuff happens throughout the day hospital wise, but all you can do is talk. And my mom's vision was mostly gone, at that point. So it's not like sitting and watching TV is a good time eater, but she and I talked just a lot anyway. We were yappers, as the kids would say. We liked yapping together. But it meant that we just talked to the nth degree about all the big stuff that, what do you want? Well, how do you want stuff to play out? And that is it makes it so much easier that I don't have any unturned stones. Whereas my dad, died suddenly. And well, when it's a bit of a surprise, you don't have any, you have all these unturned stones. I really I don't have any unturned stones of significance, and it feels awesome. Jen says, one of those weird benefits of having a parent who was a hospice nurse for several years. Talking about death and dying is not an unusual conversation. Everybody else thinks you're creepy, but I'll take that trade-off. Yeah, it really wasn't creepy in this because, it wasn't bad to talk about too. When you have a set of parents who built something really good themselves, and then like legitimately it was the classic try to make the opportunities better for your kids so they have it easier and they have more opportunities. That's exactly what happened. So we're talking about very positive things. All of it was strangely positive, even though, her role in the thing was winding down. It was like both of us felt really good. It's the strangest thing. Yeah, Jen says it's actually quite soothing. Yeah. I mean, there's a woman on Twitter who pops up because we have a lot of mutuals, and she's like academically purely into death. and about like the notion of dying and all of that stuff. And that I haven't really been able to follow her because I'm just not, I don't know. I don't,
The Better
it's
Death
not for me.
Girl? Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's like 2 degrees of separation from you because she knows Michael really well.
Oh,
Vsauce Michael.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. They've known each other for, I think before Vsauce and before, I think she might have went to University of Chicago or something. Yeah, there's some.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. There's some connection there. So your Kevin Bacon distance is really close on that one. But I wanted to say that all of that, you had a lot of things going for you as far as it being as good of a situation it could be. And it's still like monumentally, never endingly, like tsunami wave of stuff every single day. And, I've talked to a lot of people, friends of mine, who have been through this. I haven't, thankfully yet, but a lot of families just splinter and fracture and siblings, turn into enemies in which they never talk to each other anymore afterwards because of all of the infighting that occurs. It's horrible. It's really, really, it's life-changing in so many ways. It's almost incalculable.
Yeah. I think about how good I've got it. We've got it, meaning my family, in the sense that, I talk about this car thing, right? For us, it's like, who's going to go to the DMV that never has a line that is 5 miles away? Okay. Because all of us live here. All of us, none of this is hard. Most families, they have, like Kevin, your family is, your brothers and sisters and stuff are spread all over the place.
Yeah.
Almost everybody has it that way. It's so uncommon to have, like something like 3 kids, all of whom are in the same zip code as the estate in question. What do you do with a car when 3 kids are in Nebraska, Montreal, and Timbuktu? Like, what the hell? The simplest thing like that would be even more difficult to deal with. And you can imagine the conflicts. And that's what I was getting to, is your point, is the difficulties and the frustrations and the conflicts that arise as that situation gets more complicated. And that is assuming that everybody involved is a great person, and this, Dan Latch says a thing in the episode chat here that the family fell apart within a year because, some of the kids had some malicious shit to make a quick buck, as he put it. And I'm reading that verbatim because honestly, that's the way some of this goes down. That's the way it should be described. So I say, it's so devastating and difficult and brutal to sort out. And I'm not even dealing with bad people. Like I'm not dealing with monstrous, awful, quick buck type ones. Yeah. Jeff says, wife's mom's sisters don't talk to their brother because this happened. My dad and his brother, I had some kind of conflict over whatever, I think a house when their father died. I mean, I remember the house that I'm in now that was kind of willed to like 5 kids, they had to do buyouts. I don't know, but it is crazy shit. It is nuts. Is it better to have a complex situation or to, have nothing to fight over? I don't know. But it's just not, it's crazy. And it lasts a very long time. So like in 2026, there will have to be a tax return for 2025 filed for my mom because there was like Social Security payments, whatever, retirement stuff that happened in those first few months. Nothing's going to be wrapped up with a thing like this until deep into next year, and then you've got all those little things like Well, the winter's broken now and grass is starting to grow. You've got a whole extra set of maintenance schedules and all this. It's a lot. And again, this is on top of the utter horror and devastation of losing not only a parent, but a really good one. A really good one. It's not a case of anybody being like, oh, thank God they're gone, which happens. There's no relief in this one. This is straight up horror. Totally all consuming though. And as we were talking about before we hit record, like my beard is noticeably much, much whiter. It's like 80% white now. And in December, it was probably like 25% white. It was around like chin area that was white and down. But now the sides are white.
Yeah, it's less salt and pepper and more salt.
I'm straight salt. I'm salt and snow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, you know what it is? It's a mix of like the white stains in the salted driveway and the white dog poop on the sidewalk from the 80s. What? That's the color that we're dealing with.
Wait. What was with the 80s white dog poop? Is this?
You know what I'm talking about,
yes,
right?
Yes. But is there a explanation for this? Do we understand why dog poop turned white in the past, and does it not now?
I read it. It doesn't now. I read about it once, and I think part of it had to do with what was in the food. There was something in the food, and the sidewalk component didn't matter as much. Calcium in the food. Yeah, it was something like that. Dan the Latch says calcium. But yeah, what a strange thing that like dog poop has changed color in our lifetime.
The most significant change in our lifetime is dog poop color.
Yeah, doing a lot of reminiscing lately, and all I came up with was like, back in '87, dog poop was white.
Yeah. Times sure have changed. Oh, it's awful.
Boy, everything's different. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and I've been feeling, good. I've weathered this storm well enough. I haven't been, shaking in the corner, smoking 4 packs a day. And I still have, you can see the effects. It's just been abysmal, but that meant seriously day-to-day unpredictable schedules. There was that period I was gone, whatever, but even after my mom passed, how many times, Kevin, it's the middle of April, how many weeks in a row did I say, yeah, I should be good for Friday? And then Thursday night or Friday morning came around and I tell you, you're on your own.
Okay. So first of all, it was never Thursday night. It was always Friday morning. And
because it was still Thursday night in Hawaii.
Yeah. No, but that goes into the fact that every morning for you has been, have 17 things to do and 17 things I don't know if I have to do, but I might have to do. And if I have to do any of those, then I can't do the podcast. So it's always Friday morning because of that reason. And to answer your question, it was about a month straight. I think it was 4 weeks in a row where I thought you were coming back. I would tell, we talk for a little bit before and after we actually start recording. So if you want to be around for that, then join the Discord. But I remember telling everyone in the Discord for that month straight that, all right, Matt, we'll be back next week. This is the last solo podcast for me, and look forward to that. And we'll get back into the swing of things. And then it just didn't happen and didn't happen and didn't happen. And I wasn't sure it was going to happen today. When
I don't blame you.
When you first sort of reacted to me asking you the perennial or the weekly Friday morning question of what's going on with the podcast, because if you say no, I can't do it today, then I have a couple of hours to come up with a topic. So it's ends up being a little bit of a scramble for me.
No, I knew that I put you in a bad
spot. What am I talking about today? What's grinding my gears this week?
I felt bad about that, but it must have been terrible for you, Kevin, that you get this promise so many times that Daddy's finally going to come home with that carton of milk.
Yeah, and then I'm just sitting there with a bowl of cornflakes dry.
Cornflakes dry. You've been staring at that bowl since the middle of December.
Yeah.
Waiting for Daddy.
Mm-hmm.
There's an added component to this, though, too, which is that you have those 17 things and then the 17 mites and all of this. And as you're navigating the day, your abilities to do any of those things change based on your energy and like mental acuity and all of that. So I could plan out a day with certainty, and then maybe by 11, maybe by noon, I would be in a very different position. Never better. Never like, ooh, I got this. I'm on the top of my game for the afternoon. No. It's always worse. And then you have to readjust and push some things, and and it makes everything impossible. But I want to say something. I want to say a few things. First, I got some really excellent messages from podcast people, Discord people, baby gang, all of it. Really wonderful messages and nods. And thank you all for that. I have a backlog that is insane. So I haven't been able to hit everybody, but I will. It meant quite a lot. The second thing is, Kevin, thank you for going to my mother's funeral. This was a very, very big deal to me. And Ben as well. Producer Ben was there. That was extremely meaningful. So I would say broadly to everybody, go to funerals. I know it's grim, but it's actually not. It's nice. Go to funerals. Go to your friends' events, the things that matter, because generally people don't. They just don't. A lot can't. You can't expect every funeral in the world to fit, especially at our age when people have families and obligations and all that. But if you can make it, all it takes is 2 minutes. You hit something like calling hours and just face to face be there to validate that the experience that's happening matters. Vodcat says, just show up in any way. Boss Threads did this when both my dad and mom passed. Shot me a note. That's all it takes. Doesn't take much, and that is super, super meaningful. So it meant a lot to not just me, but my family. Kevin, that you were there. That's just a bigger deal than you'd think. And everybody should know that. I wish I'd really understood how important that was when I was like 21. I would have gone to a lot more funerals in the last 20 years. And I think a lot of people would have felt better.
Well, I think this is a thing that's going to be increasingly rare, just in general, are people leaving the house to show up to do a thing that, is not really super exciting and is actually pretty depressing, but at the same time is extremely important and meaningful. And you and I were actually talking about that this morning in regards to another event that you and I were discussing going to or not.
Yeah.
And after going back and forth for about 10 minutes, it was like a lightning bolt in the brain to be like, definitely go, go, because of what you said earlier, because no one else will. If you no one else is going. So there are like many examples of this that I think bucket into this same sort of overall concept that I have about success. Okay. And we talk about that a lot on this podcast, and in many ways, that's sort of the point of it. So I think it's important to bring up here, which is how would I bumper sticker this? It's almost like almost no one does anything. So if you do a thing, it will stand out. If you do anything, then you are all of a sudden vaulted to the head of the line of any endeavor that you wish to be, considered a part of. You're in the 99% just by doing something like showing up instantly.
Yeah.
Or doing the thing that you say that you're going to do. Oh, I'm going to do this thing. Here's a very selfish example. So bear with me with this very selfish example. 5 or 6 years ago, I made t-shirts for Sleep Warrior. When I first had written that original manuscript for Sleep Warrior, I wanted to make t-shirts for it. And, so I did. I hired an artist and, paid him a couple $100 or whatever it was to do an original design for Sleep Warrior. And I did a limited run of like 100 shirts that they weren't print on demand. So I had to buy them. I had to buy all 100 shirts outright and store them in my house and ship them individually to anyone who ordered one. So it wasn't like a Teespring sort of thing where I just threw a design up and then, someone could buy it and I would barely even know unless I checked my account. No, this was like a pretty intimate way of doing it. But I wanted to make sure that I was happy with the garment and the print and blah, 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 because I'm a nerd like that. Anyway, the reason that it connects to this topic is that I did a poll on Twitter before I had purchased any shirts, because as you can imagine, the more shirts you order, the cheaper the unit cost is on each shirt. So, if you order 50 shirts, they're X amount of dollars. If you order 100, they're a little cheaper. If you order 200, they're even cheaper, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I did a Twitter poll asking people, and I posted the design and I said, if I sold this shirt, do you want to buy one? Do you want to buy a shirt from me? It's this shirt. It's for Sleep Warrior. My novel, my ongoing, never-ending working on novel. And I think about 150 people or so said yes. Okay. So I did this poll on Twitter. About 150 people said, yes, I want to buy this shirt. So I thought, great. If, 150 people say yes, I'll get 100 shirts, because I figure there's going to be some variance and some drop off, but I'll sell the 100 shirts, no problem, out of 150 people who say yes. I think I'm trying to be, this was years ago, so I'm trying to be a little charitable here, but I think maybe 12 of those people, like 12 people bought a shirt. It was something around, we'll just say 10 to make it like a round number. Yeah. Maybe 10 out of that 150 people who said, yes, I will buy this shirt, actually bought the shirt. So obviously it's really easy to click yes on a Twitter poll and much harder to convert on a sale and spend $20 on the shirt and purchase it. But the drop off was crazy to me. So like I said, I mean, it's a similar ratio where it's super easy to say you're going to do a thing, and then the amount of people who actually do it is a tiny and memorable pile, because I remember like the 10 people who bought the shirt. I'll remember them forever, right? Because it was such a tiny group of people who actually followed through.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was a high conversion too. It's usually like 1%, because I see authors talk about this a lot on Twitter, like the self-published ones who are tracking not only tracking their own sales day to day like that, but they have numbers that are smaller. The self-published people on Twitter are not selling 10,000 copies a day. And so they'll do a poll where it's like, who wants this, making something up, but like, who wants this in hardcover? And they have a following. They have fans. They have people who know their writing. They have people who probably bought, ebooks or whatever it was. And they'll get that 100, 150 people who are like, yeah, of course I want this. And then I'll see a follow-up tweet that they sold too, and that the conversion is truly like 1 to 2% on the stuff that you're talking about. So the fact that you were like 8 to 10% is crazy. You have the best following in the world.
And here
you have the best friends in the world.
Complaining about it. And it's like a remarkable conversion rate, but it's the same thing. It's like, no matter what you expect that to be, it's going to be low. It's going to be low, whether you're talking about someone showing up to a funeral or buying a t-shirt or a hardcover book. The amount of people who actually are going to do it, it's going to be barely anyone. So if you're one of the barely anyone, you stand out. You're memorable. You're in the elite club simply by following through with the thing that you said that you would do, which seems like not a big ask, but it really is. It really, really is. Obviously.
Yeah. Before, for those of you not lucky enough to see us on video right now, as Kevin was talking about the shirts, I ran to the bathroom and I still have my headphones on as I'm in the bathroom. I always like listening to Kevin's voice when my pants are down. It's it's just a soothing feeling.
Who doesn't?
But it means that I can't respond to anything that I'm hearing, and I just have to think about it. He's talking about the unit price going down, and I'm like, if that's the case, you could have put an order in for 10 million shirts and they would have been free. Like it would go to zero. And yeah, you got hosed.
They would pay me at 10 million shirts.
That Boss Red said in the chat that if they were Gildan's, they start paying you. Yeah. Gildan is a good sandpaper t-shirt. The other thing is, you're saying like, how do I distill this? Whatever. I think Vibecat did it in the episode chat. Vibecat said in all caps, which matters here, just show up. And that honestly is it. Just show up for things. Make the shirt order when you've said to somebody, you like, or that you will do that. Just show up to the funeral. Just show up to, the thing that Kevin was talking about that he and I were discussing. We went to a thing where there weren't very many people at all. And we were probably the only people not connected to the people putting on the event. We showed up. Nobody in a capital city of a state showed up, but we drove an hour to show up. That's a nice thing. I am a champion shower upper. Okay. Or at least I was in my earlier years. Now I don't step off the porch unless I need my passport. But I would do that. I remember very distinctly, there was a course that I needed in college. I needed it to satisfy a certain requirement. That wasn't like a 101 level. It was actually the higher level requirement, which meant that you can't just show up and be one of like 200 people. There were like 15. I found out about like 15 people in this class. So I called the registrar. I'd like to sign up for this course. We can't do that. That's, it needs professor approval for that. There's enough time for you to get that, whatever. It was going to be impossible. And so, 20 minutes before the course met for the first time, I just went to it and pled my case to the professor, said, I really like to do this. And here I am. And it was fine. He's like, oh, the initiative of that made it obvious that I was a serious enough student to be approved. And he said, yeah, okay, I'll sign the form, whatever, just bring that, tomorrow or something. And that was it. I just showed up, and it ended up very luckily leading to an incredible relationship with that professor that pays off every day of my life. But even if it didn't, I would have satisfied that requirement. Other people had nightmarish scheduling stuff. They had to just throw up their hands and take another course the following semester. Some had to sneak a thing in the summer because it wasn't offered. Some went to other schools in the summer that were around their hometowns and then had courses transfer. It was all of these things because they went through this, labyrinth Kafka-esque process with whatever. I showed up. I had a decent, polite conversation. I wasn't a moron. I wasn't an idiot about it. I wasn't entitled. I didn't, say like, you got to let me in here. There was no entitlement. Boom, got it done. That pays serious, serious dividends. Show up to things. How many people are so resentful and miserable because they don't have any romantic relationships of any kind? And when you talk to them, you realize, how would they ever meet anybody? Nothing in their life would lead to meeting another human being. Well, you got to show up to some things. You got to do something. And the truth is that nobody does anything, period.
No, and I have
No, but
I have two things about just showing up. One is that I I read the most random stuff just because I don't know what it is. Uh, I just like learning about human beings. I guess I'm just like perpetually interested in like real human being stories. One of the things, so I did a whole podcast, maybe like a podcast and a half while you were gone, about how disgusted I am with TV shows and movies because, in my opinion, they're lying. They're lying all the time about real people and real stories and how real human beings interact. That's my base level analysis of why I don't like them.
Yep.
Because I love real people and real stories and real problems that people have. So I read about this stuff a lot in a lot of different avenues. One of the things I read had to do actually with this topic as it relates to college students no longer showing up to class. So there was this really long article that I read from a professor who worked. I don't recall what school he's in. Somewhere in America. It doesn't matter. Who was talking about how, and he's been a professor for, several decades. So this was his Kids These Days rant, but his Kids These Days rant is based upon his tenured experience being a college professor. And he was saying that attendance to class is now like just a thought. It's not anything that anyone adheres to any serious degree. And that, kids show up sometimes, I guess when they feel like it, they'll leave. They'll just get up and leave when they're over it. I don't know, just walk out in the middle of class because something shiny has appeared, but they just show up. So when I say that this is a problem that's going to get worse, the reason that I say that is based upon things that I've read like this, in which a lot of people are not showing up, even for the things that in the past you were required to if you didn't want to fail a class. Like,
yeah,
attendance is part of your grade when I was in school, but it sounds like it almost no longer even can be because everybody would fail. You'd just be failing half the class because they barely ever show up. I mean, I don't remember. You would probably remember better than I will what like the unexcused absence total was that you were allowed 2 maybe in a semester. Yes. I don't think it was more than that. It was like, I want to say 2, but
yeah, I had it 1 because a lot of my courses were 3-hour seminars once a week.
Okay.
And it's like, if you miss one of those, you miss the equivalent of a week of class. Like, you can't miss a lot of that.
Yeah. So the other thing that I talked about a little bit while you were away was when I became the editor for the comics section of the newspaper at college. And that was 100% a just show up situation. 100%. It had nothing to do with anything other than just showing up. And in that case, just showing up meant write and draw a new comic every week and submit it to the newspaper. Mm-hmm. Every single week, I sat down. The deadline was like Saturdays because that's when the editor would do the layout for the week. So you put a new comic in the editor's mailbox by Saturday, and then it would be published the following Tuesday, I think is when the newspaper came out. So in a school of thousands of students, I was the only one who did that. I was the only one who attended this entire university who would put a new freaking comic in her mailbox every single week without fail. Mm-hmm. So when she was graduating and she's thinking, who's going to replace me? I need to find someone to replace me as editor. Who do you think she asked? Just me.
Yeah.
Because I showed up and I wouldn't go away. And honestly, this is what happened with Vsauce. The Vsauce story is the same just show up story. So originally Vsauce was a collection of different contributors to this channel, a video game comedy channel. And it was Andre the Black Nerd. It was the Screen Team. It was Wacky Gamer. It was a bunch of different people, and I was one of them. And I just didn't go away. I kept making new videos and sending them to Michael until he just was like, do you want to just do Vsauce 2 while I just do Vsauce 1? It's like, okay, so now I'm just Vsauce 2. It was the same. It's the same thing.
It seems to have worked out for you.
It's gone okay.
We've talked too. I tried to show up for you in the early days of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Where that's literally how I got in the fold, is the same type of story as you had with Michael is what I did with you, where it's like, you need this, I will do this as, you know, promised on time, whatever, you know, all the normal stuff. There's nothing special about it, but you expect this to happen. It happened. And you do that over and over again until it, you know, grows, becomes real, whatever. Is literally all it takes is that kind of thing. You were talking about the college stuff. There was a time at which I had office hours. And well, when I was a student going to office hours, nobody goes to office hours. They don't. They have this incredible access to who is somebody who's hopefully a good, knowledgeable professor. A lot of them stink, but you know, you've got a couple good ones in the mix. And every week you can go in and sit across the desk from them and talk to them. And almost nobody takes that opportunity. When I was a teaching fellow, I had, you know, my own office hours. I remember 2 people who came in because they were just like students wanted to talk further about the material. The others who came in were questioning grades or grubbing for grades. That's it. That's not cool. That's not cool. Spencer said, Spencer Roney in the chat, that like all the jobs that he got were pretty much from showing up and talking to people. And I pointed out that he's for those of you who haven't had the absolute pleasure of meeting and hanging around with Spencer, he's good-natured and not weird. Again, that's all it takes. So he talked to these people.
Well,
was a decent guy.
He's weird in the right ways. In the good ways.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, but Spencer showed up. That's how we know him.
I know. I just wanted to caveat that, you know, he makes videos for like toilet companies.
Yeah.
He's weird in the good ways.
He is, but you don't talk to him for 5 minutes and think like, holy shit, that's a weirdo.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So he's a perfect example here because he listened to the podcast. He showed up when I did I did some streaming stuff on Twitch. He popped into the Twitch and we talked for a while and got to know each other and had a great deal in common with background and geography and personality and all this stuff. Yeah, it was awesome. And so when we needed some more things, that's who we went to because he showed up. I can't believe we didn't lead with this. That's it. Yeah. I mean, well, yeah, the truth is you do kind of, you know, the best showing up happens after you've like borderline stalked so that you know what you're getting into. As long as the person doesn't know that you were creepy, but you're like secretly creepy. And then you show up, and hopefully you get along. Hopefully that person notices you. They don't always. You can show up 100 times and it just isn't happening. Whatever. So what? On to the next one. You show up to 10 things. Maybe one works out.
We took him to Vienna,
nobody
for
shows
God's sakes. He showed up so well that we literally took him to Vienna to shoot the Polaroid documentary. He shot it.
Yep. I'm working on a documentary from a project in Albania. We just showed up. I cold emailed a man in Albania and said, we booked this. We're going to be there. Can you help us? And we got along well, and we ended up spending 2 weeks with him, and it led to an incredible story that we're putting this video together. Jeff Strife, yes. Spencer Roney has been doing some audio editing. He did a great deal of stuff last year on our assorted projects. And, you know, there was an event in Las Vegas in July, I think, last year, where this organization really needed somebody to film content, kind of like man on the street interviews. And it was like, oh my God, who can we get to do this on short notice, whatever. I said, hey, I know a guy. And we got in touch with Spencer Roney. And later that day, he had his tickets booked to Vegas. We booked his hotel room. We had a hell of a time. We had a really nice time there. And producer Ben was there too. It was good. Ben just showed up back in the day, and a lot of White Castle. Yeah, Spencer Roney and I played some poker at the Horseshoe, and then bought a Crave case at White Castle at 3 a.m.
White Castle is disgusting.
Oh my God. What was it, Spencer? It was like 50 cheeseburgers. Oh man. It was one of the briefcases with a handle.
What does 50 cheeseburgers run you at White Castle? $10?
It was like 30 because it was on the middle of the strip. But it took me most of a week to eat those. And I still left some in the mini fridge when I left Vegas.
There's still some in your colon right now, actually, that you haven't passed.
I forgot about that. He said a woman on the street asked us if we were going to feed a football team. It was a comical amount of White Castle, but, we'd had a fun poker time, and then it was White Castle. But look, why did this happen? Because Spencer showed up, and then 6-8 months later, we're eating diaper meat cheeseburgers in Vegas for work. I mean, and it was a legitimate, like we had it has paid off nicely. Like it was a very good event to do. Yeah, show up. That's literally it. I struggle with this because it's so simple. This is all too simple, isn't it? And I feel like the simpler a thing is, the harder it is to get people to do.
Well, the reason that very few people do it is because it's hard to get people to do. If it were easy for people to do, everyone would do it. That's why it's rare.
Yeah.
It's way easier to just not do the thing, no matter what it is, than it is to do it. And so, you go through the path of least resistance and just say, nah, and don't do the thing. You don't make that comic every week. Oh, I got to make another one. Nah, I don't want to do that. So I'm not gonna. I'll just hang out with my friends and drink and watch TV and play video games. And that's more fun than sitting down and thinking of a comic and drawing it. And maybe it sucks and maybe you get blowback from it and you're putting yourself out there and you don't want to handle any of that stress, because there's stress involved in showing up. There's unknown involved in showing up.
I want to point out a subset of this too. That's the stress-free not showing up. And this is something I've experienced with auctions a lot. I love auctions. And I've come to realize over the last few years how difficult this is for the world to understand, because auctions are very, very much a Northeast and New England phenomenon at this point in time. This is in-person estate auctions. And I know this now. I really have a good sense of it because I'll be talking to a friend somewhere about auctions. Oh, and before I forget, Spencer said he got all his jobs that way. Veterans of the Create Unknown, remember Sean Malone talking about exactly this. All of his jobs came from showing up too. And he spent a lot of time going into what they were. It's like, hey, show up, do a thing. Well, I'll do it for free. He talked about the video editing job for the wedding company that he was editing videos on an Amiga. That's how low rent the thing was. But that got him started. And now he has a fantastic creative career. But anyway, I'll be talking to somebody in some other part of the country and just be like, they're like, oh, this sounds really cool that you can go and buy furniture and books and just all the stuff that people have in their house. And then I'll look up on a site called Auction Zip, which is like the database of auctions and when they are, the calendar. I'll put their zip code in, search for something within 30, 50 miles. And in a big city, there'll be like one. I am not in a big city. I am in nowhere. I'll search, and in a week, there will be 12 or 15 different types. So I understand this is difficult, and I have no idea how it works outside the U.S. too. But anyway, it's all these household possessions. If there's something you're interested in, you generally have a sense of how much it would cost you to get on eBay or new at a furniture store or whatever it is. You have some sense of this. And it's really easy to overthink and not quite psych yourself out, but overthink it. I know this thing is worth $200. There's no way I'll be able to go to this auction and get a really good price because everybody else knows this too. It does not work that way. It does not work that way. Showing up and bidding, you would be surprised at how few people don't go because they don't think they're going to get a price, and even don't bid in the heat of the moment because they think the bid is going to go too high. What's the point in bidding $100 when you know it's going to go for $2? So you drop out. Well, then somebody gets the thing for $120 and you're sitting there in a puddle of regret. This has happened so many times, even recently for me, where you just show up and put a bid on something and it shocks you that nobody else showed up and put a higher bid on the thing. And you get, stuff at a tremendously good bargain sometimes. But it's that simple. So you can be really stressed out. There's that category of stuff that you just went over, Kevin, where the stress of it keeps you from showing up. And then there's that category of stuff where you really decide not to show up and you do it in a rational way, but it's totally wrong. And your rationality is assuming everybody else is rational. It's a mix of game theory and economic stuff that some of you will appreciate, but on a base level, it's really most people psyching themselves out. It's that simple, and you also don't know. The key to knowing that I'll never know was I was bidding on some old milk bottles, glass ones, vintage ones. There was one from a local dairy in the 50s called Meadowlark. And I bought these 3 bottles. 2 were things I didn't want. I wanted this Meadowlark one. And I was bidding on the whole thing because I like the local history stuff. And I was like, oh God, as the bidding is happening, I'm thinking this woman bidding against me, who wants the local bottle more? And I actually hit my limit on pricing, which was $35 for those 3 bottles. And I was like, oh, balls. I hope to get it cheaper. You always hope to spend as little money as possible, but I was comfortable with that price. A few minutes later, she came up to me and said, you bought 3 bottles. I really only want one of them. And it's this Meadowlark Dairy one. And I was like, actually, that's the only one I want. I'm sorry. I can't, I don't want to sell that one to you. You want the other 2? No, she didn't. She didn't want them because she had a friend who had just gotten a puppy that the woman had named Meadowlark. And so she wanted to be a good friend and buy a gift with that puppy's name on it to give to her friend to celebrate the new puppy. Kevin, are you still with me?
Yeah. I was going to ask you to tell this story because I thought it was funny because you were so excited about the historical value of this milk bottle.
Oh, yeah.
And then meanwhile, the person bidding against you and driving you into madness over what you were spending for these milk bottles just wanted it as a gift for her friend because the puppy had the same name.
Yeah, puppy had the same name. Yeah. Sorry, I asked that. I got a phone call that nuked my headphones. The ringer did. I forgot to turn it off, so I thought I'd killed my connection. But yeah, that's when I'm like, okay, you never know what somebody else is thinking. We were in this bidding war where I'm trying to get this historical milk bottle. I'm pumped about it, and then it's like puppy gift, and we have totally different motivations, still arriving at the same price. Where I was comfortable with $35 and she topped out at $32.50. So effectively, we were at the same value. We were thinking $30 to $35 for this is cool. She wants a coincidental puppy gift, and I want what I think is an important historical bottle. You never know. We were both being completely rational, but you have no idea what somebody else is thinking. So you show up, you do your thing, and then process whatever you encounter. I have lost many times. Kevin, you've seen me lose. Kevin and I went to an auction at one point where this one guy bought like $4,000 of stuff. You know the guy I mean.
Yeah. And I will say quickly that if you ever have the opportunity, I mean, Matt loves auctions This is not something I ever would have considered going to if it weren't for him to say, hey, I'm going to this thing. Do you want to tag along? Yeah, okay, I guess so. Just out of sheer curiosity. Wow, is it really interesting? After the first one that I went to, I was like, this should be its own reality TV show because everyone in here is so bizarre and they come from God knows where, out of what little hovel they've escaped to gather here in this place to bid on any range of knickknacks or collectibles or junk of just straight junk. I mean, it is a whole gamut of people and items and economic decisions, what people will pay for something and what they won't. If you're like me and you just like human endeavor in general, there really is nothing comparable, in my opinion, to the experience of going to one of these auctions. It is unique in every way.
Fascinating. Yeah. It's fascinating. And it's cool when you know about the items because you're seeing what's happening. It's actually cooler when you don't know what's held up for sale. And I remember distinctly, Kevin, that they had a lot of what they call primitives, which I think is a bit of a denigrating term. But they were like basic handmade wooden things, carved things. They had a lot of wooden bowls. And Kevin, do you remember the first time they held up some of this old shitty wooden bowl and it sold for like $200?
Yeah. I think they sold one of those bowls for like $900. And my head is exploding. I'm like, $900 for a wooden bowl? But yes, they were fighting over it. There was a war of dollars over who could get a bowl
that sucks.
A bowl that sucks. A dirty old garbage bowl.
A dirty old bowl.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating. But when I mentioned that guy, this is a guy who has an interest in firearm stuff. And so he's not, I wouldn't call him a nemesis, but
adversary.
He's an adversary. Yeah. I'm happy. He bids a lot more strongly than I do. I'm extremely disciplined with bidding, like to a fault, where I don't overpay on anything. And I do miss out on a lot of things that I probably should get because I want them so badly. He's a lot more flexible on that. So I'm routinely outbid by the same guy. And that I don't know. It's been a couple years now. I have no idea who this guy is. He bids and buys things as if he runs a shop, but I know that he can't. That can't be the motivation based on what he's paying for certain items, because he would never be able to sell them with a good enough margin to make it worth his while. So he's probably a collector, which is awesome. But like Kevin saw, those thousands of dollars of stuff he bought, it was all over the place in terms of what he bought. It wasn't
like
just
old pulleys. Like, here are some old barn pulleys. $200. Okay. What are you doing with those?
And one guy was pissed that he lost the pulleys. And so you look at this, you're like, why is that man so angry that he lost a pulley, like a barn pulley? Why is this guy buying all of this stuff when he's probably not reselling? Is he a hoarder? Does he really just collect like 100 different things? What is he doing? You never know at all. You just don't know. But I show up, and when I see that guy, I know I'm probably going to have a hard time with firearms. Sometimes I show up and he's not there. Maybe he has the worst diarrhea of his life. Maybe his twin brother is in town. Maybe he wants to stay home and watch Dora. I don't know. But I know that when I show up, at least I'm doing my part. And I showed up months ago. I can't remember now because of the weird months and timeline. He wasn't there. And I went nuts. I mean, I had a great time. It was just a day where there was like no competition for the stuff that I wanted. Yeah. And like, because I showed up, I got the cheapest stuff ever. It was like one of the best days that I've done on an auction. Dan the Latch says that he went to an auction that had accordions, but when the Amish were there, he knew he was cooked. There are a lot of Amish at the auctions that I go to, which is cool. Not so much, Kevin, the one that you and I went to, but if it's like a barnish auction or there's a place with a lot of tools, hand tools, they're usually Amish, or food. Amish like buying food in bulk, just like me. It's fascinating, though. It's fascinating. And all of these people, this is the whole point of the whole story. It's not that auctions are cool. It's that all of these people are showing up. You can't win if you don't play. And that's the same with trying to meet a significant other. It's the same with a funeral. It's the same with a food auction. It's the same with a job. Showing up is like 95% of it. If you show up, you're not weird, and you just do the thing, okay, that's like easy mode life. It truly is. It's guaranteed success.
Yeah, you're a unicorn at that point. I wanted to say that in regards to one of the things I find so interesting with the auctions is that you'll have a bowl or like a cabinet, like a shelf, like a rickety falling apart shelf cabinet that will sell for like $800. And then you'll have a jewelry box literally filled with jewelry and nobody wants it. Everyone's like, meh. You'd think jewelry would be one of the more expensive things that would go at these auctions. Nope. Don't care about that. That's literally garbage. But, this bowl, now I will mortgage the house. I'll sell my mattress in order to buy this bowl. Nike has Just Do It. So, Just Do It is one of the most successful slogans in the history of branding and marketing. And I actually think it's simpler than that. I think just show up is an easier thing to accomplish, but still just as valuable and rare to see through. Just start there. Start with just showing up. And then, maybe do it later. That would be my tack on.
Yeah. That's it. Just show up.
That's it. All right. Well, Matt, it's wonderful having you back. How does it feel? Do you feel like you're rusty?
Seamless.
It's seamless. Okay, good.
Absolutely seamless.
Like you never left.
Yeah, it is. I've done more talking in the last few months to humans than I actually last 8 months. We've talked about this on the podcast. Actual like verbal stuff. I didn't even talk to you much because we didn't need to, right? But like most of me speaking was doing this podcast and talking to my mom. And then all of a sudden it was the events like the one with Spencer, where I'm around all of these people all the time, is talking there. And then all those trips talking, then all of this hospital stuff talking. I feel like I have talked more in the last 8 months than my whole life. And now it's back. I want to go back to, I want to do even less. I want to do less. I want to go back to a point where I'm speaking as we record the podcast, and then I don't have to say a word to anybody until the next episode. That's what I want. I only want to speak when this record button is on.
Okay. All right. Well, that'll be your goal for the rest of this year.
Yeah.
I wish you well on that endeavor. All right. Well, we'll be back next week. Just show up and remember that. So we'll be back. And until then, we will see you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We make this show with the support of our patrons. 100% of that goes directly to keeping episodes going every week. And the recent support has been amazing. Sid Poke, NRM, Venture Addicts, Weezer Good, you all really do make this show happen. Thank you to the Tots and the Dumpster crew, old and new, who save tiny little lives every month. And thank you to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Clemente de los Santos, Dan the Latch, Dimitri Demetrius Andrews, Erica, Ferry-kun, Jen Mafasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Monahim, Natsu, Penny Piddler, Ryan Steer, Ryan Kinder, Samuel Manser, Sean S., Sean Malone, and Tom Bidiover. And a tremendous shout-out to our elite Baby Gang commanders: Atrocious Scuff, Kat, Dojangles, Graham Robertson, James Gallagher, Jeff Davis, Orange Vanilla Coke, Patrick Pister, TCU's personal pilot Andy, Ryan Carroll, Baseweight Vinthos, Yeetus Deletus, Jonas Walter, Nathan Robinson, and of course, Trev Stead. You are the elite. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer, editor Ben Webster, Minecraft mogul Laterman, Discord kitten wrangler Conrad, and producer emeritus Dan Yoshua. Thanks to Baseweight for use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme. Thanks to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it, and thanks to Main Gear for powering all our PC endeavors. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.